Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy. I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
Yes, and we are with Speakeazie. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We're excited to talk to you. You're a very prolific musician because I think when we first spoke to you, we were going to talk about your album, and we will talk about the album Bootlegger Blood. But then you went and you put that out May 11th, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then you just went and released a single the other day.
Yep. I'm a little too quick, a little too emotional.
Too quick. just kind of get started. Tell us a little bit about your background, because you've got such a unique sound. It's very dark. It's a little burlesque. It's a little, I think, steampunky at times. How did you get to that point?
So I actually have like quite a fascination with the 1920s, and I realized that actually not long ago I found out that I came from a very long line of bootleggers. Hence the album name Bootlegger Blood. I kind of like to throw all my toxic yet very like badass traits on that side of the family. But I've had a very like close connection with the 1920s, and I come from a family where we are very connected to history and whatnot. So I grew up a lot on those things, and just my overall fascination, and that actually is what brought me to the term speakeasy. Is I actually originally wanted it to be spelled correctly, but there was already an artist called Speakeasy, and then like the variations of that. So then I'm like, all right, well, what can we do here? Let's figure it out. And so I ended up with Speakeasy. And at first I actually didn't like it. But then I ended up liking it because it ended up like kind of fitting the more modern crowd, if that makes sense. So that's how I got to be here originally. But as far as like my musical background, I've been a musician my entire life. I'm a classically trained musician, so I've trained under a lot of professional musicians, mostly for instrumental stuff and a lot of choir stuff. But I actually didn't think that I was ever good enough to be like a solo performer. I just thought that I was always going to be like a choir performer and just do like background stuff. Um, and it wasn't until I had like quite a few years of heartache built up that I ended up actually starting to do music, and it was like punches to the face of like in a very short amount of time that actually inspired me to start recording music and putting it together. Because again, before I never thought that I could do like solo work, and then I started messing around with things at back in August in 2021, and I didn't release my first album till January 2022 this year. So it's been kind of a crazy journey.
You are prolific, and your music is very. A lot of the songs, especially off the Bootlegger Blog, those are the ones I've listened to most most times. It's really about kind of relationships and the kind of a power struggle, or power dynamics is a better way to say it. It
Mm-hmm.
seems like, so it's when it's something like that, I was hasten to ask how much of it is autobiographical or a story that you've made up, because it seems like you're going through a lot through the songs.
All of it is very personal to me. And actually it's more about my struggle with myself and how that translates into my relationships with other people. Because I struggle with a lot of personal things, and there are something that I really value is acknowledging when there's a toxic trait within yourself and how you put that on to other people. Because there's a lot of people that are just like, oh, this relationship didn't work out, or this friendship, even it doesn't even have to be romantic, like this relationship in general didn't work out, and that's on them. I personally don't like to do that. I like to acknowledge where things fall. Not that other people haven't been shitty to me, and they have, which is definitely reflected on the EP. But it's more about how I handle things and how what part I played in that, and kind of acknowledging that it's there and realizing there's like a broken screw that I need to kind of figure out and work through.
So astute, because when I'm in similar positions, and I think I'm mad at think I'm not mad at that person, but I'm really mad at myself for
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of, which makes me kind of go and write some of the songs. Ain't right for your praise, right? Ain't right for your praise. That's
Hmm.
that line about I drive me crazy. I think
Hmm.
that's an interesting song. I'd love to hear more about it, because then it's goes from that to I drive me crazy to I'm unsure if I'm safe, and yeah, just
Yeah, so that one was a really hard one for me because it's like I want to be the person that I like hope I can be, but I also know that I have a lot of things that hold me back from that. And um unfortunately, it's like I have these people that come into my life and they think I'm someone else, but they don't really get to know me. And when they do get to know me, they're like, "Oh no, it's okay." But it's like, "No, dude, it's not okay." And you know, it's kind of like upfront they want to be accepting, but you can tell that if it took a little time they would definitely back out, kind of thing. And so that's in towards the end of the song, I say, ain't right for your praise anyway, because like I have all these people that like upfront come and praise me. It's like, but you don't really know me. And it's not, I'm not saying I'm the worst person in the world or anything. I'm just human and I make mistakes, and I have a lot of trauma and stuff that I work through. But unfortunately, that does translate sometimes to some unsavory behavior that I am constantly working on. But it's hard when you desire companionship, or either on a friendship or relationship level, but like you can't establish that with yourself. And so that's pretty much what that whole song is about, is like, someone who really wants to be in your life, but you know that they deserve better. So you make sure that you keep them at a good, safe distance, because you don't want those parts of yourself to, vomit all over them.
Do you find writing and making music helps you understand yourself or explains on some level to other people so they can digest whatever you want them to know beforehand to kind of let down that barrier in a way, I guess?
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't say I like go out of my way to like say like, here's my music, here's what I'm going through, and here's what you can expect. What I will say, and quite honestly, I think that if somebody is really that interested in getting to know me, they're gonna do that anyway, kind of thing. So I don't like to be like, here on a platter, look at it. But I will say that it does help me to write music, and it does help me to understand myself. Um, and it helps me to put it into actual chords. So a big thing about my music is that I rely very heavily on like a very coarse synth. And that's how I always start writing my songs, is I get a good chord progression in synth form. And I recognize as like a really good synth as like healing the soul. I'm very into like when I hear that synth, that's where all this comes from. As soon as I hear those chords, I dig in deeper, and everything that comes after that is because of that synth and those chords that I use. So it is very healing to me. Very, very healing. And it's also a good way for me to reflect. It's a good way for me to stand these core parts of me that are really hurting and very traumatic, that I cannot access unless I have music. It's that's really what allows me to tap into these things, and then like lyrics come afterwards and whatnot.
sorry, there's a freeze for a second there, maybe on my part. But
Probably my internet. It's pretty bad.
that's okay. That's I just want to make sure. Yeah, when it's so interesting to hear that the synth is a huge part of it. I think that ambience lends so much. I love the start of I'm a wreck, not a queen, and when you listen to it, it sounds old timey. What I think it sounds like is an old film projector. to a certain degree, and that kind of gives a tone to a song that's otherwise, quite. Well, it's a huge dance beat to it. When I love the juxtaposition of the old and the new.
Mm-hmm.
I think you do an amazing, and I think that the same with the video that you did for Disintegrate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was, and maybe you'll
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the video for folks who haven't seen it, or even for those who haven't. It's just a fun combination.
Yeah. So Disintegrate, I really wanted to like tap into that newer, like old-timey film kind of thing. And so I, shot the video on like a green screen in this room actually. And then I collected clips from like public domain, and I used a lot of clips from a 1920s movie called Swamp Fire, which is currently in public domain as well. And the movie is kind of interesting because it's very like sexist in a way. Like it shows like kind of like a weird dynamic for women. And so I really attracted to that because the whole point of Disintegrate is like it for me personally, it can be anything, anyone who's ever felt taken advantage of. But for me, the whole core of the song was being a woman and being objectified at a very young age, being put out into a world and having people look at you more like an object instead of like what you can actually do artistically, intellectually. And I work in the video game industry, and so that was a very prominent thing for me, and it still is. Like I still have people that do not take me seriously, and it's not just in the gaming industry, it's everywhere. Like y'all know how bad it is. And so I was just really beat to shit one day, and I just decided to put that song together, and I actually wrote it and put it all together in like 2 days. And so it ended up being my most popular song, but I wanted a music video that really illustrated the fact that you know there's this weird dynamic where you can just be an object at any point in time, and like sometimes you can't control that. And so that was the whole point of there's a lot of like just like very like silhouette-y, like almost like sculpture-y parts on my end, where it's just kind of like you're just kind of like floating around, and that's meant to more like capture the idea of like a woman artistically. So that's the whole purpose of that. And you see a lot of like drinking and like spiraling out of control. And um I'm a very big believer in like generational karma kind of thing, where
Mm.
things just get passed down and passed down and passed down. And I think that like as a society that happens, but also personally, coming from the Prohibition Hippie album, which is all about generational karma and whatnot, and how it directly affects me. That was that was a whole big thing smushed into one package.
And I think if maybe you'll speak a little bit to, I mean that song is done, Disintegrate is done extremely well. Extremely. I mean, I think you've tapped into a chord where unfortunately, and before we push record, I'll just say we were talking a little bit about the time that's in it, and Roe v. Wade has just been overturned, and we're kind of mourning that certainly as a generation and individually. But I think that uh, it's such a snapshot of what has happened generationally, what has been happening in the last couple centuries. But talk about tell us how popular it is, because I think that's fantastic that you really touched into that.
Yeah, I think people just what I think is really attractive about Disintegrate is that at first hearing, I wanted to say first glance, but obviously we're not glancing at it. We're hearing it, and a lot of people just heard it and they're like, oh, this is catchy, it's got a beat, I can kind of move to it. But then they're like, oh, and then they read the lyrics and they're like, this is not very, go to the club and dance with your friends kind of thing. Because it's not. And that was the overall goal, is to make something kind of upbeat, passionate, but like it's very dark. And it highlights, I think it highlights especially the fact that, especially as going through as, a woman, is that, we have a lot of things that we get stomped on for, but we have to just like, hey, everything's great, let's go. So I think that, that was one of the goals, especially capturing that, is that, you still have to pretend like you're okay, everything's upbeat. Um, and I talk I talk about a young girl, but realistically, like that young girl was me, and I'm talking about me, but I didn't want it to be like me. I wanted to keep it indirect because I knew that, it's not just me that's going through this. There's a lot of people that are going through it. And I think that related quite well, and it's gaining popularity. Um, I just think that people could either bop to it or they could relate to it. And I personally, that makes like a song that is going to do well, given that you're pushing it and whatnot.
But you've had 70,000 some streams in
Yeah.
this, yeah.
Hmm.
And how, and in a short time, which is
Hmm.
amazing. So congratulations. That's good.
Thank you.
It's fun to hear you listen to describe your music because there's undeniably that dance pop aspect of it, but there is also, as you said, that very noir aspect in it. Often, I I I've been to many noise shows, and very often but a more pop band will come on at about 2 a.m. and you're dancing to this music and it's pop, but there's something that it's that juxtaposition of I'm so tired, but I have to dance this song. I'm so tired, but I have to
Yeah.
dance that song. We're just kind of the feeling of I'm tired, but I must go on. I'm tired that I must go on. I mean, you've really captured that ethos so well.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, which is yeah, fantastic. So that's
I was going to say, when I listened to it, I heard like the delicateness of like Florence and the Machine with, if I don't know if you're fairly young, so I don't know, but Annie Lennox,
Hmm.
where this like badass take charge, but there's some mystery. Like a lot of time I couldn't hear necessarily the lyrics, so it's like you want to make us work for it and listen, and you have like a vibe, like you said, like a dancey vibe, but you're like, I have something important to say, you need to like pay attention. And I liked that about the song, where it's not just like, get you out on the dance floor, you have something important to say also.
Hmm. It's funny that you say that because like I have had people come to me before and they're like, yo, I can't understand what you're saying in these parts. And I'm like, I don't care, for me personally, I mean, I do care, but I I want people, if they care enough, to go and look for it. And some people may say that's like counterintuitive to some of the messages, but it's like I want people to hear my voice as another instrument, rather than hear me because of my lyrics. I don't want people to necessarily attach to me because they hear my lyrics. I want people to attach to a song because the music is moving them, and then they're interested in finding out more. That's really important to me. At the end of the day, is recognizing, um, what I actually want to deliver and in what order, kind of thing.
I love that answer. You are so intentional with everything. That's extremely unique to you. I love that, because usually, or I am listen and hear, but I love that you use like this as an instrument. I want you to get that message first or connect with that.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
when you have a couple of shows coming up, and part of the reason I bring them up now is because I'm very intrigued to see you play live. Having seen the video, and it's very visual, and you're very so tell us a little bit about your playing on July 14th and 21st at the Alchemist.
Yeah, so I'll be doing like a full set there. What I really like about The Alchemist is that it's very steampunky. It definitely fits my vibe. I've actually talked to them about shooting a music video there in the future, so I'm excited about that. But you know, they do music every summer for Market Fest and whatnot, and so you know, I'm very good friends with some of the people there, and they're like, you should perform here. And so I was like, all right, I'm down. Fits my vibe, and you know, I'll be doing a little extra things that are not speakeasy stuff, so like covers and whatnot, just because I like singing. But you know, the first hour will be devoted to speakeasy stuff, and that starts at 6 p.m. I say 5, but that's because you know, so people can show up. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm very excited for it. I do like performing live. You know, I am looking forward to expanding kind of my live shows in the future, and adding a little more to them other than just, you know, being up there and singing. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it.
Because I mean, tell us how much. Yeah, you've already said you put out the first album January 2020. You just put out an EP May 2020. You just put out a single. I mean, you are a very prolific musician.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm very emotional. I don't always act on my emotions. In fact, I'm very good at hiding my emotions, and I think that's one of the reasons why like putting music out there, it was very scary for me at first because I always tell people, if you want to know what's going on with me, you want a window into my soul, go listen to my music. Like you'll know exactly what's going on with me. And so that's very, very scary for me, but I'm a very emotional person and I need an outlet. So that's why I just keep popping out music. I you know, I'm currently working on a collaboration with someone, and then I'm working on another single right now. So that's they just keep coming because I'm emotional.
It's
It's good
nice.
to have
That's great.
something, yeah. It's good to have a healthy place to put that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It'd be nice to have more. I mean, you know, given the times that we've been in, playing live shows is still, you know, people are still treading lightly to some degree. So it'll be fun to
Yeah.
see to have an opportunity to play more often and play with more people, and that'll be,
hmm
yeah, that's exciting.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and I should invite you to talk a little bit too about the new single, the "Hurt You Like You Hurt Me." And I know it got a nice write up in African Hype. I saw.
Yeah, yeah, that was a really nice write up. It was a I got it over the weekend. It was one of the highlights of the weekend, despite all the news that went on. I was just like, wow, at least there's something a little positive here going on. Um, but yeah, Never Hurt You Like You Hurt Me is a very interesting song because it's actually a direct tie from Don't Go Anywhere. So that song, Don't Go Anywhere on my Bootlegger Blog EP is
Hmm.
actually a direct tie to that one. You know, long story short about Don't Go Anywhere, the same day I released that song, the person that it was about, they did in fact go somewhere. So
Jeez.
I I was destroyed. I was absolutely
Oh.
destroyed. And so the thing about this person is that I don't have like spite, so to speak, but and I understand why they departed from my life. And not they didn't even depart from my life, but they departed from that romantic sense. And I understand why they did it, but it really hurt me. And the way that they did kind of conclude it left me very, very open and raw. And I didn't really get much closure from it. And so that's the whole point of Never Hurt You Like You Hurt Me, is that it's not calling that person out for sucking about the way that they closed it, but the fact that like if I were in their position, I would have never done that to them, kind of thing. um and you know, I adore this person. I think that they're amazing, and like they're artistically, intellectually, they're beautiful. And I think that's what hurts the most, is that you want to just hate someone sometimes, but I can't, because they're a really good person, and it was really unfortunate to go through that. But that doesn't. It was just a song acknowledging the pain of going through that, and I'm still going through that. That
Sorry.
song was. I mean, life happens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've all been there, but it was a step in the right direction, because for a while I couldn't see any bad thing about that situation that happened, even though it was really, really destroying me. And that song was a way to kind of close some of those things and take the strong step forward.
And have you heard this the object of the song? Have you heard any feedback or interpretation from them?
From the individual that it's about.
Yeah.
I don't think they know it's about them.
Fair.
If they ever figure it out, I'll address that when it comes. I don't even think that they know the other songs about them. So I think it's funny, to be honest, but we'll see. Maybe they know and they just know better to not say anything. But yeah, I just if they wanna step up and talk about it, I'm here. But I don't go out of my way and be like, I wrote this about you. Listen,
Yeah.
like it's not about them. It's about me and the way that I put my feelings out there. It's the way that I deal with things, and that doesn't include, which is why I keep them very bland. There are some little like very specific things in both of these songs where I know if that person heard it, they'd be like, crap, like this song's about me, kind of thing. But I would never want to slander them or call them out in any way, because I don't really believe in that unless someone really, really goofed. But yeah.
That's
I was
all
gonna
right.
say, yeah, if they say anything, you might have new material for new work there.
I usually try to keep my songs more about me and my emotional thing. Don't Go Anywhere was actually the first song, well, the second song I should say, about a specific individual. I've only really had, like two or three songs about individuals that every other song was inspired by a situation that I had been through personally, or like something that you know happened in a weird way, I guess. It's the best way I can put it.
And I want to ask a little bit about I'm Crushed in His Gaze, because you got some powerful imagery there in that song.
Yeah, I would say that's more of one of my darker ones. So the whole like background behind that song is kind of like being in an abusive relationship. um and what's hard about that song is that I have been in abusive relationships in the past, and it's like you love the hell out of this person, but that they're very, very toxic and not good for you, but you just don't know how to let them go. And so like the point of the song is like, do I want to like put this person out of their misery and like execute them, which I wouldn't actually do in real life. I just want to say it's more, I would say that's more of like a fantasy kind of thing. But it is inspired from like real experiences that I've had, where it's like it's beautiful to help someone and kind of help them heal and build them up, but some people just like they have to help themselves, and it's about being in love with someone who is not going to help themselves, and because they're not going to help themselves or change their ways, it ends up becoming an abusive relationship. And so the song is very like, like you're in love with this person's soul, but like you can't have all of it, because it's the parts that are unsavory are very, very bad for them and for you, no matter what you do. So, it kind of goes back and forth. And I leave the end of the song very open ended. So you don't really know what the person does at the end of the song. That's pretty much like the whole course of it. Do you leave this person? Do you stay with this person? Or do you put this person out of their misery? So it is a very like dark song overall.
As you say, you've got some very dark stuff, but with the dance beat.
Mhm.
It's the spoonful of sugar that
Yeah.
makes the medicine go down,
Yep, yep, for sure.
that makes it very palatable. And yeah, I can understand the success that you've had, and I'm sure you will see more and more of it because you really touch upon, as I said, just things we've all gone through. I mean, we haven't all gone through an abusive relationship, but other, breakups and disappointments and different
Mhm.
relationships. I think we've all been through something like that, and yeah. And again, unfortunately, we are in a time where we're kind of suffering the consequences of the generations before us.
Yep,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
very good timing. For folks who are listening, I will put these in the notes. Where can people find you online?
I am on Twitter at scruncho_speak. I'm on Instagram, scruncho.speakeasy. I also have a website, www.speakeazie.com. I'm on Facebook at Speakeasy Music, and
All places.
I think I covered it. Yeah, I am on
All
TikTok
the
too at
places. That's
Speakeasy,
all.
but
That's good.
I
I
don't
still
use
include
that
that.
pretty often. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Speakeasy, thanks for talking to us. We look forward to the shows at the Alchemist on July 14th and 21st. To get those dates right. So that's an opportunity for folks to get out and see you. Otherwise, check out any of the social media to reach out to you. So
Yeah,
thank you for your
absolutely.
time and such
Yeah, thank you for talking.
compelling music. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for hanging out and talking about it with me.